Of all the words spoken across the ages, few carry more weight than the final ones. They are echoes of empires, whispers of power, and often, the last defiant cry of a lifetime carved in stone and blood. These are the last words of history's greatest leaders, spoken in the shadow of death, but remembered forever. Julius Caesar, the dictator of Rome, fell beneath the blades of men he once called allies. As the daggers pierced his body on the floor of the Senate, he turned to one he trusted most. Et tu, Brute. You too, Brutus. In those 4 words, betrayal became eternal. His voice fades, but the image remains. The great Caesar falling, not just to enemies but to friendship turned treachery. Napoleon Bonaparte, once emperor of almost all Europe, died in exile on a wind-beaten island in the South Atlantic. The man who once crowned himself before the Pope whispered, "France, the army, head of the army, Josephine." His final breath was not of the glory he won, but the love he lost and the nation that slipped through his fingers. Even in death, he reached for power and for the woman he once adored. Queen Elizabeth I of England, the Virgin Queen, the monarch who defied marriage, mastered diplomacy, and ruled a golden age, died quietly after decades on the throne. Her final words were, "All my possessions for a moment of time." She who ruled time and tide, who played kings and empires like pieces on a chessboard, could not escape mortality. Her empire vast, her reign legendary, and yet in the end, what she craved most was more time. George Washington, the first president of the United States, passed not on a battlefield, but in the stillness of Mount Vernon. His last words, "'Tis well." A quiet surrender, a soldier's acceptance. The man who stepped down from power when he could have seized it, went into death with the same grace that marked his life. Leonidas, king of Sparta, stood with 300 warriors against a Persian army of millions. At Thermopylae, as arrows blackened the sky, he knew there would be no survival. His last words are lost to history, but according to tradition, when told that Persian arrows would blot out the sun, he said, "Then we will fight in the shade." Whether he said it in his final breath or not, the defiance lives on, courage carved into the mountain itself. Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans, burned at the stake at just 19. Accused of heresy, condemned by those she fought to save, she faced death with unwavering faith. As the flames rose, she cried out not for mercy, but for salvation. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." Her voice, a prayer. Her death, a martyrdom. Her legacy, eternal. Abraham Lincoln, the man who held America together in its darkest hour, was shot in a theater beside his wife. His last known words were spoken not to his assassin, but to his love. "She won't think anything of it." A quiet, tender remark to his wife about holding hands in public. And then, silence. A nation wept as the man who freed the slaves slipped into history. Alexander the Great, a king before he was a man, a conqueror of worlds, died young, after building an empire that stretched from Greece to India. When asked on his deathbed who should inherit his power, he is said to have replied, "To the strongest." With those words, chaos followed. His generals tore the world he built apart, and his empire crumbled. But the words, they still thunder through time. Winston Churchill, who stood defiant while bombs fell on London, who inspired a weary world with sheer will, met death with unexpected finality. His last words, "I'm bored with it all." Perhaps a fitting exit for a man who had seen too much, of war, of politics, of life itself. A tired farewell from a lion who had roared for so long. And then, there was Genghis Khan, the Mongol who reshaped continents, whose horsemen swept across Asia and Europe like a storm. His final words, veiled in secrecy, are believed to have been, "I have conquered for you a large empire. But my life was too short to take the whole world." He died longing for what he could not finish, a world that slipped just out of reach. Some last words are triumphant, others are broken, some are lies, some revelations. But all are windows into the hearts of the mighty, caught at their most vulnerable moment. the instant when power vanishes and only the truth remains. They ruled nations, shaped history, defied fate. But in the end, like all of us, they had only their words.